My friend was saying this too, but I kind of sense that like it seems like they're really trying to make Kamala the face of this whole thing, as a hopes of like, oh yeah, like we're the diverse party and racism is over. Like that's the kind of,
That's a pessimistic view.
and it is. It absolutely is.
I would disagree. I think that people are just celebrating the fact that it's the first time in history that, like, one, not only is a woman vice president, but she is a person of color of, like, South Asian descent, and she's black, like a Jamaican. Those are two, she's bringing two different cultures, bring them into the White House. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. First of all, a woman. Second of all, a woman of color. Third thing is that she doesn't like, oh, I'm just like bland, whatever. She like brings that to the table. And I think that just generally, I would say, especially because I work with younger girls too, just being able to say to them with certainty, like, oh yeah, like there's a woman vice president. Like, you can also become not just vice president, but president. That's never happened in history of America until yesterday. I think that's what we're celebrating over the fact of like, oh, diversity, whatever, this and that. I think that after Trump, where we had 4 years of very harmful rhetoric, while it did bring things to light from other people, like you got to see people's real like faces, I think it went to a very negative place where people start acting on it and like being very violent with their words and their manner, everything like that. But to have that and to show in this moment where everybody felt like there was racism and all this type of stuff that was under the rug really got lifted up in the dust, that you're able to be like, wow, we were able to overcome that. We haven't had a president who didn't serve 2 terms for almost 100 years now. I was very much certain that Donald Trump was going to have a second term. I quite literally, in the last election, I couldn't have been any more involved. I had to remove myself because I was like, I cannot deal with the fact that I'm going to get so involved in this election with keeping up with it and everything. And then Donald Trump is going to win again for a fact because like history really isn't on our side. And then to be like, no, your language does matter. Your actions does matter. Who you, like, these people that you put in office, it's not just these people putting out this harmful rhetoric. These are people that look like you, who care about you, who care about low-class people, and are actually doing it by showing it. And I think that's more monumental than the fact of, like, oh, yeah, we have a girl who's, like, brown, good for her. I think it's more so this is a historic moment that is very important to, like, acknowledge. At very least acknowledge, especially after the last 4 years that we had.
I'm glad you understand that. I don't think that a lot of people do. I think that now that I say thank you for the last 4 years. I say that because we've really seen everybody be outwards who they really are. The real fear is the illusion that we have the possibility to have in the next 4 years, which are the closet racists and people that hide behind wrongdoing and evil things and fight for their positions in unjust, unfair ways. And I mean, like, if you've seen, for example, this woman's history, there is a lot of conflicting things with the people that she represents, that she's supposed to represent, that people think represent them. And what her actions have shown, right? But overall, I would just say, I'm like, it's overall like you want to hope, you want to pray, this is the right direction, because obviously I think like the overall impact of the country's mood and just our hope and feeling towards each other, the divisiveness that has occurred. That at least can simmer down all of that, right? But are we going to get to solutions?
I mean, I definitely think that's a good question to ask. But also, the comparison that you have, I think, isn't necessarily there. Yes, there is closeted things that happen, but also overt things can be damaging, especially to the point that we've had them to. I also say thank you for the last 4 years, because I say thank you to see the stark contrast and difference between the languages and how we speak about people, and everything is put right next to each other so we can really witness it. I think, however, when we have things that we consider that we really have to dig through, politics is dirty. Okay? Politics is not like a cute, fun little game where everybody is just happy, whatever. It is money making for your campaign. These people that you're getting money from are the things that you have to really like promote. All those things. You have to like...
Doesn't have to be.
Right. I'm saying that would be ideal.
We're used to it in the American system.
That would be ideal. But I'm saying that in the history of politics that we have lived through so far, there's people like AOC that are coming up that does not accept big campaign money. But there was a time, especially like reading through Obama's book and stuff, it gives you perspective about you're not able to get your name out there unless you have millions and millions and millions of dollars behind your name. There are people like Bernie and AOC that have really come together, but the thing that pushed them up is the internet. Like, they got their exposure from the internet. Before that, you had to pay for advertising. You had to have a big name. Otherwise, you're not winning. And we saw that with Donald Trump. He had a huge name. But to go through Kamala Harris and be like, okay, she had a history with her thing in her, in her last job. She did this wrong. Everything, right? These are politicians. It is their job. They're not going to do everything right. And that's not an excuse I'm giving her. I did things wrong in my job, too. In every job that I've ever had, I've done things that are wrong. Like, for example, I've messed up a whole night worth of orders because I've messed up delivery drivers. Anything like that. But the magnitude of what your mistakes are affect a lot of people because you are a public servant. Now, what does this tell you? Yes, there are things here that are wrong. Absolutely. And now we're going to hold these people accountable. What we didn't do is by allowing this person who got elected in these last 4 years was not holding him accountable those 4 years for sexual allegation of many women, for having a fake university, for speaking about disabled people wrong, for speaking about immigrants wrong, for speaking about people's religion. And that was tolerated and accepted and was overly praised by a lot of people. But to have the stark contrast between the two, and then we look at the one person who that we have dug into their history in the dirty game of politics to say, oh, you know what? You've done things wrong. And you know what? You're really not representing us. You represent me a lot more than the man who is sexually like that's traumatizing a woman across the world. The fact that we put somebody in office who not only just, did that in his job, he openly said, I can grab a woman by her. And that's fine because I am who I am. And we were okay with that. There's a stark difference, and we have to recognize that.
I mean, these are all things that I think we think about when it comes to where do we go as a nation and as a culture forward from here, right? We've seen what the Trump age has brought us. And here's one thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to get rid of my Trumpy friends. Like,
oh, yeah.
And people might listen to this and be like, why do you even have Trump friends in the first place?
I make fun of them. I'm like, yo, are you guys sad, depressed? Like yesterday, I was like, yo, you guys depressed?
But people would tell you, like, how do you even still have Trump friends? Like, there's a lot of people that
remove them from your list.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
But, like, that's literally most of my high school.
I need to know what, not just what is being said, but, like, I like understanding people. And a lot of times they're the ones describing the feeling that is a complete stark difference from my thoughts and opinions. I want to know your thoughts and opinions. Exactly. And if I remove that, then I don't have access to it.
Like before we jump on what you're saying, let's try to figure out why you're saying it. Where is this coming from? What's the root of this? And is there a way to get to the solution or have it both ways somehow before we get there? Because most of the time, we're looking at something that somebody just said, and like Hadia pointed out earlier, it's usually just a little excerpt of a huge, piece of something. And we're all guilty of it. Like, I probably have done that before where I see a tweet, and I'm like, this person is wilding. But when we actually break down where they're coming from, and also, in this day and age, we should know better when somebody is doing something to clickbait it. And it's not just an opinion. Now it is to get attention for that opinion, to reel them in, right? Because we do that as a podcast and as a brand overall to get to the greater idea. We should be aware of those things, and we should keep these people around so that while we're all caught up in Trump is over party, that we don't miss out on what Biden party is doing, or any party for that matter.